just want to take a minute to welcome parents and professionals. These particular Mondays with Coach Mel, are Facebook Lives that we do for both parents who have picky eaters or maybe highly selective eaters, or kids who perhaps are just learning to eat orally. There's a wide range of spectrum of picky eating. And likewise, we have lots of professionals who tune in and provide some advice and ask questions, and we always get a good conversation going. But tonight, if you saw some of my posts on other groups and on my new Facebook group called Adventures in Veggieland, I suggested that tonight's the night we bring a glass of wine because we're going to talk about some stressful stuff. So let me get started here. There's all my friends. Okay, great. We are going to be talking tonight about parents who are not on the same page when they have a picky eater. And we all know this is really common, whether you're a mom, a dad, a partner, gosh, even how about a grandma and maybe a single mom living in the same house and trying to take care of that little munchbug? What about an extended family where perhaps the child goes over to the aunt and uncle's house during the week? We're talking about all of that, where we've got two or more adults, they're not quite on the same page, and how we can all get there because we want to parent consistently. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. All right. If you're going to parent consistently, it really is about not only keeping parents and caregivers on the same page, but keeping strategies consistent so the child can make progress. All the research shows we've got to have consistent strategies in order to move forward. That's true for anything we learn to do in life. Well, if you're going to try to get on the same page, well, the first step is you know you're not. So you're ahead of the game there. That's good. If you're going to get on the same page, how are we going to coordinate this? I brought some signs. This is always my challenge, is trying to get it to get in the screen correctly. Can you guys read that? Tell me yes or no. Can you read that sign? Give me a yes or a no or a thumbs up. Yeah? Okay, great. The first step is you've got to understand your individual food culture. Just for the sake of easy conversation, let's say we're talking about a mom and a dad. Everybody comes to the table with their own unique food culture. Yeah. And have you ever just had a minute to sit down with your spouse and talk about that and say, what was it like for you growing up? Like, did you have regular family dinners? What do you remember about family meal times, if you had them? When did you eat the most together? Was it when you were rushing off to baseball practice, or did you actually have a scheduled time? Now for me, because I'm old, we didn't have as many after-school activities, and we sat down every single night at 6 p.m., and my mom had dinner on the table, and we started with Grace, and we ended with me doing the dishes. And I would say, I'm not exaggerating, at least 5 nights a week, we had family dinner. And I know nowadays that's a little bit harder to make that happen. It's really important, and we'll probably talk about that in another Facebook Live. But talk to your spouse, perhaps talk to your parents if they're helping to take care of your toddler or your preschooler or whoever your child is who's having trouble with picky eating. Think about it. They grew up with a very different food culture than you probably did, and then how you're going to raise your child. And what we bring literally to the table is what influences that child's behavior. So make sure you understand where you're both coming from. Then ask each other, honey, what do you want for our child? What is it that you really want for our child? A lot of times the dads will say to me, I just want to have a nice family dinner. But the moms will say to me, I really want to make sure he's getting good nutrition. And sometimes it's the other way around. My point is, they often don't have the exact same goals. So you've got to have that conversation, mom and dad, and figure out what is it that's really important to you. And then if you come up with 2 or 3 goals, that's great. But you both got to be willing to support the steps to get there. The other thing I want to talk to you about is you got to share the worry. Share the worry. Let me tell you what that means. So often I'll go into a family's home and the mom, especially during my first couple sessions, is in tears. And the dad is saying, he's fine. Well, he really eats okay. I don't even know why we're doing feeding therapy. Again, no offense to mom or dads. I'm just giving you the wide range of what I see. Well, I'm giving you that example because when you have a mom who's fighting so hard and is so worried about that kid, and you've got a dad or a partner who's saying, they're fine, it's okay. A lot of times, the person who is being so casual and apparently relaxed about it is actually very scared. It's just that they think that the calmer they appear, the easier it'll be on their wife. And that they're doing that to help them feel comfortable and know that honey, I got this. It's going to be all right. The problem is when you have one parent who's really, really scared and maybe in tears, and then you got another parent who's down here going, this is going to be fine. Because he's trying to make sure that this parent over here is going to be okay. You have a real imbalance of emotions. So you got to share the worry. So if it happens to be the dad per se, then I really encourage that dad, look, you got to show her you're a little worried because that shows that you care and that you're on the same page as her. Then she'll lighten up a tiny bit because now you're both carrying the same amount of emotion. Does that make sense, everybody? It's really, really important to get everybody on the same page, even when it comes to the amount of worry they have for their child. Let's balance it out a little bit and not put too much on one person and not so much on the other. Okay. Well, if you happen to be a parent who has a child in feeding therapy, your feeding therapist might actually give you some food homework to do. And that might be doing some oral motor work, some mouth exercises. It might be working on toothbrushing, just to help desensitize the mouth. Whatever it happens to be, it's one more thing that parents have to do every day. And you know what? Parents are really stressed right now. They have so much on their plate. So I really encourage mom and dads to assign a day that they're going to do it. So like mom, Mondays, dad, Tuesdays. Maybe the babysitter could do it on Wednesdays. Give everybody 2 or maybe 3 assigned days. It's their job, their responsibility on that particular day to do that food homework. On the other hand, if you've got a picky eater and you're not in feeding therapy per se, or you are in feeding therapy, but you want some hands-on type things to do throughout the day, I call it parenting in the kitchen, then assign a day that mom or dad or the partner is going to do that. So maybe dad says, you know what, I always have a little extra time on Tuesday mornings. I don't have to be into the office at 9. I'll make breakfast with them then. Well, we'll always make a different breakfast every Tuesday. I promise that's what I'll do. That can really help the other partner, in this case the mom, breathe a little bit easier because now she knows it's done on Tuesdays. Or maybe on Friday night, maybe grandma says, you know what, we always have pizza on Friday nights, but how about I come over a half an hour early and I'll bring Johnny into the kitchen with me and we'll make pizzas together every single Friday night. Not only are you establishing a really good routine and some food homework, but you're creating great memories in the kitchen too with you and grandma. Alrighty, let's talk about some basic rules to keep everyone on track. Basic rules, are you ready? Okay, don't yuck my yum. This is something I learned from Dr. Yum, who wrote Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater with me. It's the first thing she taught me, don't ever yuck my yum. And she's right. I often will make one of these signs and put it right in the kitchen with the families that I work with. And I want dads and family members and the kids I'm working with to know that if you don't have anything nice to say about the food that's presented, don't say anything at all. That's how we make friends with food. That's how we make friends with friends. You don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's totally fine if you don't like it, but just keep it to yourself. If you do say something negative, that's not fair to the other people at the table. You know, I often talk about in my courses how I'm not a big fan of tapioca pudding. My husband loves it. I'm not going to say anything if he's eating tapioca. I want him to enjoy it. Plus, from a psychological standpoint, if we yuck somebody else's yum in front of our picky eater, they're not going to have any eagerness, any interest in ever trying that food. So that's a hard and fast basic rule that I want everybody to follow who's helping this little kid become a more adventurous eater. The other one I want to talk about, and we'll take some questions here in just a minute, is be careful what you reward. Be careful what you reward. This is a really good time for us to take a small, short break here and just talk about antecedent, behavior, consequence. And I know a lot of you that I'm seeing here have heard me talk about this before. I want to take just a few minutes, though, for those of you who are not familiar with this concept. It takes us back to Psych 101. And the behavior that we're talking about here could be desired, like in this case, maybe the kid takes a bite, or undesired. The kid turns his head away and says, ew. Well, the antecedent is what happens right before that behavior. And it can be visual, like broccoli showing up on his plate. It could be auditory, like maybe he hears you grumbling in the background about something. It could be some other sort of sensory cue, like maybe the aroma is too much for him. It can be a lot of different things, but it cues that behavior. In other words, it gets him to think about doing that behavior. And then the consequence is whatever either reinforces the behavior to keep happening, or consequences can also help the behavior go away. So when we were talking about being careful with what you reward, there it is. Be careful with what you reward. You have to think about, what behavior am I accidentally rewarding here? Make sure everybody is on the same page with this concept, because so often, if I'm working one-on-one with, for example, I have a dad right now that he's home during the day and I work one-on-one with him, and his partner comes home later that night. And when I have gotten together with the two of them and their daughter, the partner hasn't had the advantage of hearing me talk about not accidentally rewarding the behavior of not eating. So what he's doing is, when the little girl doesn't eat, which is the behavior we're talking about here, he starts to cheerlead her through it. So he'll say, oh, it's really good. Oh, you're going to like it. You know, just take a little bit. It'll, if you could, sure, you could just lick it. Yeah. Well, okay, honey, if you don't want to lick it. And before you know it, this little girl is getting all this attention for not eating. It's really hard, but the best thing that parents can do to be on the same page is be quiet. Give kids a chance to do the desired behavior. Don't cheerlead them through it. Give them a minute. Just the presence of the food is cue enough, is enough of a cue, excuse me. And then as you focus on family at family meal times, instead of so much about the bite, Often just the presence of the food is enough to help the kids take the next step. And sure, there are a lot of strategies that your feeding therapist will help you with to know how to move forward in progress. But just remember, don't reward not eating. Likewise, not only do you want to be careful what you reward, be careful what you cue. Be careful what you cue. What I mean by that is, think about your antecedent. That's the cue, right? So often, parents are so scared and they're worried and they don't realize that they're sitting at the table a little bit like this. A little scared. I often have to pull them aside and say, I need you to put on your best Academy Award performance like you are Meryl Streep right now. And just wipe that worry off your face and know that this is going to be okay. And they're so surprised to find out that their emotions are so clearly transmitted to their kid. You got to fake it. You got to smile. There's actually very good research that shows that if you smile when you present a new food, the child is much more likely to taste it eventually. So remember to smile for both of you. And I'm going to pause here to take a few questions and then we'll talk about the very last tip. So let's see, these go by kind of quick. And Lori says, I see so many kids that come in saying, I don't like this hundreds of times when presented with any food. I've successfully found that ignoring is so powerful and just redirecting and reinforcing anything else he does. Lori, that's so true. I talk about this in my 2-day course all the time. I know in a lot of courses, they'll teach you to say, oh, you don't have to eat it. Or the little kid will say, but I don't like it. They're just being a kid. They know that if they say, but I don't like it, that you're going to respond. Try instead to just state what is happening at the moment. So if he says, but I don't like broccoli, maybe you just state, yeah, I guess we've all got broccoli on our plate tonight. Looks a little bit like a tree to me. I don't know. I remember back in the day, dinosaurs had trees like that. Do you think yours looks like a dinosaur tree? Just change the subject. Or if he says, I don't like it, I don't like broccoli, completely ignore, turn your body away just slightly and talk to somebody else at the table. Now, if it starts to escalate, your feeding therapist can help you break it down to help that behavior go away. But in general, ignoring is a really powerful consequence, and redirecting is too. So Lori has a great point there. Let's see. Jody says, I remember being a cheerleader and I didn't even realize it. Jody, I look back at all my home movies of me cheerleading my kids through my through my camera. You can hear my voice going, oh, say this, do that. Oh, no, no. And it wasn't until I started getting into applied behavior analysis that I realized that what I was doing really wasn't very helpful. So don't worry, you're not the only one. I did it all the time too. And we all learn as we go. All right, any other questions here? Thoughts on parents who want to reward food with another food? In other words, take a bite or a lick of this and then you can have this. Okay. I personally never reward with food because, and I try to stress to other parents not to do that. I don't want kids to think that eat this okay food and then you get the good stuff. And that's why I don't reward with dessert either. In Raising a Healthy Happy Eater, we go into this in quite a bit of detail about why it's not a good thing. However, in applied behavior analysis, there's a little bit of a difference, and it's called celebrating, and that's what the reinforcement is. So if the child takes a bite and is eating it for a second, you might turn to that child and give them a little bit of attention, not necessarily saying, good job eating your broccoli, because that's probably going to make them shut down. Instead, turn to them and say, you know what? I was thinking we might go to the park later today. Do you think maybe we can go down to that the one with the big slide? What you're doing is you're actually reinforcing the behavior of eating broccoli. Does that make sense? The behavior is eat broccoli. The consequence is mommy pays attention to you. It's not obvious to the kid. It's a very subtle thing, but boy, does it work. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Yum's here too. Hi, Namali. Hey, let's just take a second to say, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I didn't know Dr. Yum was going to join us, so we're going to talk about it real quick. In June, I'm going to be doing a benefit 2-day course for the Dr. Yum Project. And I'm hoping, I need your help, we're going to raise $40,000 for kids in Virginia to be able to use our curriculum and other benefits of the Dr. Yum Project, our nonprofit, and learn to be healthy, happy eaters. So we are so excited because Talk Tools is our gold sponsor, and everybody knows how terrific they are. And Dr. Yum is going to be there, and she's going to be giving a little talk and a little special appearance, and the Dr. Yum Project crew is going to be providing lunch. So if you want to sign up for that, go to dryum.org. It's the CEU page. I'll post it here in a few minutes. We'd love to have you join us in Virginia. Alrighty, let's see if there are any other questions before we go on to this last point, and then we'll take a few more. Let's see, I'm just backtracking here for a moment, and I think that is, Jody says, oh, I love, quote, parenting in the kitchen. Dr. Yum and I talk a lot about that during, when we were writing Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater. We both truly believe that when you practice parenting in the kitchen, and that would include gardening and farmers markets and going to the grocery store together and buying produce, etc. But when you practice parenting in the kitchen, the skills there spill over to the rest of your day. And when parents really follow our 7 parenting principles, one of which is parent consistently, they find that their whole day goes better. So I hope you'll definitely refer to Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater for more on that topic. Let's see. Creative Speech Lab says, is it okay that dessert is a reward for eating some dinner, which could include a preferred food? You know, I just want to be honest with you. I don't want dessert to be a reward. I don't mind dessert being a treat. So in Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater, we talk about the different ways that you can provide dessert. It might be to put a little piece of dessert on the child's plate with the preferred food. And if the kid eats it first, it's going to be like an itty bitty size, I don't even know how to describe it, a little bigger than a postage stamp. You know, it's not enough to spoil anybody's appetite. And I don't care if they eat it first, but there's no seconds on dessert. Another strategy, though, that I really like is to keep desserts for the weekends. So Monday through Thursday, we're enjoying our yummy dinner. And if kids say, I really want a cupcake tonight, you might respond with, oh, I'd love to make those cupcakes. Let's definitely make those on Friday, and we can have them Friday and Saturday night. You can help me. And by the way, if you have a chance to pre-order, actually order, because it's about to be on bookshelves any day now, my new book, Adventures in Veggieland, you can see it in the background there. There is a really great recipe in there for chocolate beet cupcakes, and they're so moist and so yummy, and you don't even need frosting on them. They're like the most yummy chocolate cupcake you've ever had. You're gonna love them. So get the kids in the kitchen and try to incorporate some veggies even into dessert. Adventures in Veggieland, every single vegetable in the book includes a dessert, a sweet treat, I call it. All right, let's keep going here with the last point, and we'll see if there are any more questions. So often I'll get together with parents and they'll be a little worried because maybe a holiday's coming up, or maybe they're going on vacation, they're gonna be at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and they're a little worried about, like, is Grandma gonna be able to follow through with this? Grandpa loves to just get him anything he wants, and he's going to give him as many cookies as he wants, and he's going to stock up when we get there. There's going to be piles of Oreos. Well, first of all, a couple days with Grandma and Grandpa, don't worry about it. Let them have their fun. But if it's a regular visit, perhaps Grandma and Grandpa help every Friday to take care of the kids, then we've got to get Grandma and Grandpa on the same page. And if you don't feel like they're quite ready to adopt some of the strategies that your feeding therapist provides, here's what I want you to do. This is what I always tell my parents when they're in this predicament. I say, well, do they know that he's in feeding therapy? Oh, yeah, they know he's in feeding therapy. Okay, great. Blame it on me. That's what I always tell them. Blame it on me. You don't even have to explain. My own grandma, Grandma Nyla, used to say to me, you don't have to explain. And that is such good advice. You don't have to explain. You just say, you know, we talked a little bit about Johnny being in feeding therapy, and we've got some new homework this week. And one of the things that Coach Mel is really trying to help us do is make sure that we're not rewarding with dessert. So our options are to put a little bit of piece of dessert on his plate, or maybe to just, maybe this weekend we can make those cupcakes together. We could probably give them those two choices. And if they question it, the response is, I don't know, Coach Mel, she is tough. Tough. And we got to do this. I just need you to support me. Like, I don't know why she's making us do it, but just blame it on me. That always works. That always works. So blame it on your feeding therapist. Let's see if we've got any other questions here. Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, Renee says, I feel like I'm failing. My oldest is my picky eater, and my middle child has a G-tube, 100% tube fed, and in feeding therapy. I feel so alone and stressed with this. Renee, I want you to know you're not alone, and every person here is going to tell you that. There are a lot of feeding therapists that are part of this conversation tonight, and they can show you 100 other moms and kids in that same scenario. And I think one of the greatest things is that you've tuned in here tonight and that you know there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and your feeding therapist and all of us are going to help you get there. One suggestion I have for Renee and for everybody is, just about 48 hours ago, I bit the bullet and I decided to start a Facebook group. And I did it actually for people like Renee because I wanted to be focused on fun. When you have so much to worry about, you have a child with a G-tube, and I know several parents on here, I've recognized their names, they've got kids in that same situation. It's very, very hard to focus on fun. So I created this Facebook group. You'll see right at the top of this Facebook page, and I'll put the link in here in a minute for you too, that you can just click on it to join the group. And the only rule I have is you have to keep it fun. It's any ideas that you might have that help kids love vegetables, no matter what stage of eating they're in. So Renee, you're going to find lots of really fun ideas there, and it's okay right now that your child isn't eating orally, because you're going to find really fun ways to play in food, to get your kids in the kitchen, to find creative ways to have them be at the counter. Somebody put a cool hack on there today, how to take 2 IKEA chairs, put them together, and create a step stool for the kids to be right at the counter. Really neat things like that. And it's for every therapist to post. It's not just my page. I'm just the administrator. I really hope all of you will join. We already have 300 people on there in just 48 hours. So let's see if we can get 300 more. And please invite your friends to join as well. Oh, Jody says the group is great. Let's see. Another question here. Oh, there's just so many nice comments on here for Renee. I love that. Any other questions? Let's see. I think we've about covered it. I'm going to give everybody a few more minutes. I do want to mention one other thing that you might find helpful, and I'll put this in the remarks as well, or Namali, Dr. Yum, if you're still on, do this for me. Dr. Yum has this really cool app and page on her website, and it's called the Meal Maker Machine. And I use this all the time in therapy. When you go to the Meal Maker Machine, you can look in your cabinet with your kids and determine what spices, what protein, what vegetables you might have on hand without ever going to the store. And you can pick a recipe, and the kids can do little check marks to determine, oh yeah, we've got zucchini, we've got some salt, pepper, we've got some oregano, we've got some pasta, and figure out what they'd like to make with that. And then they click make my recipe, and it generates a custom recipe just for that kid. It's so exciting. And then you make it together. So when Namali and I were at the American Academy of Pediatrics last year, they were demonstrating this for all the pediatricians there, and they were going nuts over it. And the app is only 99 cents, and it's free on our website. So definitely go to dryum.org. Check out my 2-day course that I'll be doing with her, and also the Meal Maker Machine. I'm just double checking.